backyard barbecue on the 4th of July. It's the shining city on a hill, an image so powerful it doesn't just sell a lifestyle, it sells a promise. This is the classic American experience we broadcast to the world. A land of boundless liberty where, if you work hard and pick yourself up by the bootstraps, nothing in this life is out of reach. It's the magnetic pull that leads a German tourist, Pierre, and other foreign visitors from Clint Smith's book, How the Word is Passed, to share the same sentiments and innocently declare, everyone can do here the American dream. But to begin, we must admit that this imagery is often a form of political theater. Hanif Abdurraqib's essay, A Night in Bruce Springsteen's America, takes us inside a Bruce Springsteen concert, a space filled with chanting, fist-pumping, and waving flags. He describes it as a carefully constructed performance of a singular America. It's a captivating illusion of an ideal society where the painful burden of survival is ignored, replaced by a unified brand instead. For decades, we've used this theater to convince the world, and ourselves, that we are the good guys, united by a dream available to all who enter. Soon, however, the cracks in that white picket fence begin to show. We realize that this performance relies on what Clint Smith indirectly refers to as unclean demarcation, or in other words, a purposeful refusal to draw a clear line between America's celebrated ideals and our brutal history. As Damaris, a tour guide in Smith's book, warns us, this is world history that has been completely whitewashed and wiped out of our education systems globally. We view the North as the heroic champion of freedom, yet Smith reveals a devastating truth about New York City. It wasn't just the second largest slave market in the country, it was economically dependent on it. The ties were so deep that in 1861, Mayor Fernando Wood actually proposed that New York City secede from the Union, alongside the South, to protect its profitable cotton trading relationship. The nation's foundation isn't just liberty, it's also the whitewashed reality of the North's deep complicity in slavery. When asked the root cause of this injustice, Smith answers that we are simply unwilling to know. Many continue refusing to acknowledge the problem, as doing so would be too uncomfortable of a truth for many to bear given the beliefs they've been taught their entire lives. Here, we arrive at the core problem. If people are unwilling to know, it's definitely not for a lack of evidence. Eula Biss, in her essay Time and Distance Overcome, reveals that these contradictions were never really hidden, they were publicly broadcast. Biss provides crucial context on the telephone pole. Initially, Americans feared this new technology, with there even being a war on telephones where homeowners would fight against their installment. But eventually, the narrative shifted. They became glorious symbols of American progress. The hype was overwhelming. President Rutherford B. Hayes labeled the telephone one of the greatest events since creation. Thomas Edison declared that it annihilated time and space and brought the human family in closer touch. Yet, this reveals that once these poles were accepted, they were immediately repurposed as convenient gallows, a device typically used for the hanging of criminals. In a horrific litany of violence, she lists black men who were burned, shot, and hung from these very symbols of progress. The public would gather to watch, and photos were even turned into postcards sent as greetings. This is the paradox. America has always broadcast its technical brilliance and its racial violence on the same channel. So much so to the point where we've seen to have normalized the gap between our glorious progressive technologies and the grotesque reality. And this forces us to confront the central question of this essay. If America's entire global reputation as the good guys is built on this carefully maintained half-truth, what happens when the domestic reality can no longer be hidden from the global stage? We see this question erupting into the 21st century. Abdurraqib noticed something odd at the Springsteen concert. While the white crowd pumped their fists to songs about the American dream, he states, the only other black people I saw were performing labor in some capacity. This is the hidden engine of the singular America. The dream is a celebration for one group, simultaneously built on the service and mistreatment of another. He contrasts this sharp division with the atmosphere at the memorial for Michael Brown, the 18-year-old killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri. In August 2014, Brown was shot and his body was left uncovered in the street for 4 hours in the sweltering heat. The community watched, traumatized. While the concert was fueled by a romanticized idea of the American dream, the air in Ferguson was heavy and thick with grief. Abdurraqib notes a devastating truth here. The idea of hard, beautiful, romantic work is a dream sold a lot easier by someone who currently knows where their next meal will come from. In the past, America kept these two worlds separate, but the 21st century forces a collision. The images from Ferguson and later the murder of George Floyd broadcasted this thick grief to the world. We could no longer pretend that the promises of the American dream were meant for all of us. The consequences of this exposure begin to turn inward. For a long time, the painful burden was isolated to marginalized communities, but now the disillusionment is universal. A 2024 poll revealed that only 27% of Americans believe that the American dream still holds true, a historic low. We see this decay in how we treat those who come here seeking that dream. Recent policies targeting Harvard international students and aggressive ICE raids that have shattered the image of the welcoming nation. Immigration battles and birthright citizenship debates signal to the world that the golden door is closing. Foreign internationals are no longer just shocked by racism. They're afraid. Reports show their primary fears in the U.S. are now gun violence and the hostile political climate. It is becoming impossible to sell the myth of a singular America to the world when we are actively expelling those who believe in it the most. What is left is an undeniable shift in global perception. As Smith's guide, the Morris, previously noted, this is not New York City or American history. This is world history. This shift can be seen with our closest neighbor, Canada. For over a century, we shared the longest undefended border in the world. However, that bond has been fractured, and recent studies show over 2/3 of their population have either negative or very negative views of the U.S. This trend spreads further. In many European and Latin American nations, the U.S. is now named as one of the greatest threats to their own democracies. With the world now seeing these contradictions clearly, we can't simply hide the broken chains at Lady Liberty's feet anymore. The domestic reality is fully exposed, and if we do not address the truth behind the myth, the country risks crumbling under the weight of its own history.